My boyfriend got another girl pregnant. Excuse my lack of formality as I am not familiar with Reddit, but I felt like putting this here might help me cope. I, 22F, have been dating my partner, 22M, for 5 years. We have been together since high school and we've gone through a few rough patches. A while back, I found him on dating apps. He was scrolling through them and matched with a few people, but was not messaging anyone. I decided to cut things off for the time being because I wanted him to seriously decide if we wanted to be in a relationship with me or not. We chose to take a break and spend some time apart. About a week goes by and we decide to get back together after some long and hard conversations. From that point forward, things were great. He was a much better partner, truthful, caring, loving, etc., until he wasn't. He started acting very jittery, secretive, and had bouts of anger for no reason. He started acting very distant and wouldn't talk to me about what was going on. Eventually, he cracked and told me that during our week apart, he met up with a girl from work, and they hooked up. He switched jobs shortly after that, and they lost contact. After a couple of months, she contacted him and told him that she was pregnant, and it has to be his. She refused to get an abortion, refused a paternity test, and refuses to let my boyfriend see the child when it's born. What should I do? Where do I even go from here? How am I supposed to feel? Please help.
Spouse probably cheated on me 25 years ago, does it matter now? About 25 years ago I was in the military and was on a 2-year assignment a day's drive from where my 38-year-old wife and I lived. We had been married about 20 years at that point. So I only came home on the weekends. After the first year, wife started telling to just stay there and not come home until my assignment finally ended. I refused and continued coming home on the weekends. She started treating me very coldly and not wanting to be intimate on those weekends. Then after another 3 or 4 months she started randomly accusing of cheating on her and continued being cold towards me. When my remote assignment ended I was given orders overseas for 3 years. So I started preparing to rent out our house and move my wife and teenaged sons. My wife constantly fought with me about it, saying she did not want to go and that I should go by myself. Also during this transition, she was still cold and distant. My kids wanted to go, so she finally agreed to go. Once we got to the new location, she started constantly finding fault with everything with me and the location. So after 6 months there I received permission to move her and my kids back home at the end of the year. The next 6 months was cordial at best. She was still cold but allowed some intimacy about once a week. As the end of the year drew closer she became excited about moving back and withdrew from me again. She stayed withdrawn from me for the last month or so. I took 2 weeks leave about a week after she departed with the kids and went back home to help out. After about 3 hours of arriving she was telling me to just leave and go back to my base. I stayed for about 10 days and returned to my base overseas. I was there for another 2.5 years. I would go home about every 4 months for 10 days and be treated the same way as I was the first time. We would be intimate May twice in those 10 days, but I got a feeling she was doing it out of a feeling of obligation rather than desire. Also she acted as if she wasn't really happy I was there, and even stated she would like it better if I did not come back home until my time overseas was finished. For that remaining year and a half she remained cold and distant when I visited and whenever I would call her to see if all was okay. If I mentioned I had went to a cookout or bowling she would accuse me of cheating and hang up. She would also constantly tell me everything was my fault and was always in her way of doing what she wanted. After I finally got transferred back the coldness and distance remained. After 6 months back I moved out. I stayed gone and even told her that if that is the way she was going to be I wanted a divorce. So she agreed to marriage counseling. We went, but it was mostly a joke. She blamed her coldness and distance on me not understanding her and what she wanted. So I moved back home and just ignored it from then on. I left the military and got a job that required constant traveling. Now 25 years later we are both in our 60s and retired. I have a lot of time on my hands now and time for self-reflection. Hindsight is almost always 20/20. Now I question her actions as I look back and analyze them. Various articles I have read from persons who analyze cheating spouses. My wife's actions back then fit the pattern given by other cheaters. Even though I don't have the proof or smoking gun, there was plenty of smoke. Over the years since then, some of her friends and previous co-workers have made snide remarks about her possible cheating during get-togethers, while the alcohol flowed. I have mentioned it to her a few times. She never denies what they say but responds questioning their honesty or that they were probably doing themselves. We still have an occasional blowout. A few times I have been so emotionally drained by always being who she lashes out at that I leave for a few hours just to get my composure back. When I come back I tell her that I will leave if that is what she wants. Then she immediately states that she never cheated on me and has always been faithful. To recap, 25 years ago, my wife exhibited the cheater telltale symptoms listed by many professionals in the marriage counseling field. She pushed her spouse away, became distant, constantly found fault with her spouse, constantly denied cheating even though never accused of it, and constantly accused her remote spouse of cheating. Also, she constantly worked overtime on the weekends at her company even though no one else there did except her boss. This occurred for about 3 years. So now to my question or dilemma. We have been married for 45 years now. I am now questioning our entire married years. I can't bury it at the back of my mind anymore. Should I leave this sleeping dog alone? Or should I discuss it all with her and probably tear our marriage apart? Update: a few of her co-workers, also Asian, are still around. They were also her friends. I have to be really careful because they stay in touch on FB. So I knew a couple of the husbands and will possibly try to talk with them. 2 oldest kids were already out of the house. Youngest lived in the video game world and never paid much attention of her comings and goings. But I will talk with them a little. Update: so I tried to reach out to someone and was very careful in what I said. His wife immediately called my wife asking why we were separated and other BS. Glad I did not actually ask my real questions. So this tells me I can't. So we'll just confront her directly and try to get her to believe I actually know something and not just suspicion. Need to get my physical living accommodation set up here in the US first.